The Amanda Project by Melissa Kantor and Amanda Valentino. Chapter 15. As soon as he saw me, Hal said something, but I couldn't hear. I tried opening the window, but the storm window was stuck, so I couldn't lift it. Hal watched me struggle for a minute, then gestured for me to come down. I held up my index finger, hoping that Hal would recognize the universal symbol for "I'll be down in a minute," and then went out in the hallway. Heading downstairs, I wondered what I'd tell my dad if I passed him, but even though his truck was still parked in the driveway, he wasn't around. I didn't exactly mind. It was bad enough that Hal had seen the state of my lawn. I didn't need him seeing the state of my dad. Hal waiting for me made me remember all the times when we were kids and would meet up in the woods. So even though it was weird he was standing there, it also kind of wasn't. Hal moved to Orion the summer before 6th grade, which was coincidentally the most boring summer of my life. All my friends were away at camp or doing stuff with their families, so I had no one to hang out with. I used to go exploring in the woods behind my house alone. One afternoon, while I was making my way across the stream via this really old mossy log, I saw Hal. We talked for a while, and then we spent the day climbing trees and exploring this creepy cave he discovered earlier in the summer. I didn't notice the stuff like his haircut or his high-waisted pants. In truth, I was kind of a fashion disaster back then, with my baggy t-shirts and cargo shorts and my hair in 2 asymmetrical pigtails. Hal was fun. He didn't talk a lot then either, but he taught me how to fish, and he was good at climbing the hills and rocks in the woods that were equidistant from each of our houses. And then, one day, while Hal and I were making our way across that same log, I somehow lost my balance and fell and broke my arm. It was a pretty bad break. I had to have pins in it and surgery and everything. So I couldn't climb around in the woods anymore. Instead, I started going to the bookstore at the Galleria for something to do. And that was where I ran into Heidi, Tracy, and Kelly. Not at the bookstore, of course, at the food court. They were shopping for school clothes, and Heidi said hi to me, which was really surprising since the 3 of them were super popular, and I was, well, it wasn't a loser or anything, but I was definitely a neutral. I couldn't believe it when Heidi asked me to come over to her house and hang out with them poolside. It was like being invited to be on your favorite reality TV show or something. Their lives were just so cool. I couldn't swim because of my arm, but I could definitely enjoy lounging on the fancy white chairs that line the pool and drinking orangianas her maid brought us in these fancy little plastic glasses with little palm trees all around the base. That was the day Heidi pointed out that all of our names ended with I, except mine, but she was nice enough to let me drop the E. And she said we could be the I girls. I'd never had a group of girlfriends like the I girls before. Heidi called me every morning. We'd either meet up at her house or go to the mall or to the movies. When my other friends came back from their summer sojourns, I didn't make plans with them, and after a while, they stopped calling. Meanwhile, I completely forgot about Hal. By the time school started, I looked like a completely different person. The I girls had taken me shopping for cool clothes. I'd gotten my hair cut by the person who cut Heidi's and her mom's hair. Sometimes I'd have passed Hal on the hallways and pretended not to recognize him. I wondered if maybe I'd been transformed so much since our time together that he really didn't recognize me as the girl he used to meet in the woods. "Hey," he said. He was wearing a cool suede jacket that could have been vintage. It made me think of Nia's jacket from the day before, and now I wondered if Amanda had taken both of them shopping for their clothes. For the millionth time in the past 2 days, thinking of Amanda made me feel left out and stupid. Like the whole time I thought we were friends, she was actually just playing some ginormous joke on me. "Hey," I said back. Wasn't sure what to say. Part of me wanted to tell Hal all about the money and going to Amanda's house earlier, or going to not Amanda's house earlier, but part of me didn't want to tell him more about Amanda than he already knew. "Feel like walking?" he asked. Sure." Anything was better than just standing there in silence. I thought Hal would turn in the direction of the woods, but instead he went the other way, up to the right and toward Crabapple Hill. Except for once, I hadn't been there since the last time I'd gone with my mom back in late October when she'd woken me in the middle of the night to see a meteor shower. As I walked with Hal, it was hard not to be aware of his extreme cuteness, and I couldn't help feeling that he was thinking really deep thoughts. Not about Amanda necessarily, but maybe about art. It made me feel awkward and self-conscious, like whatever I said was bound to sound shallow and stupid. That fear kept me from talking, which only made me more aware of the silence. Even when we'd climbed the top, neither of us said anything for a minute. Crabapple Hill isn't exactly Mount Everest, but Orion isn't exactly Nepal either. I mean, it's pretty flat, so you don't have to be all that high to get a good view of the surrounding lands. I almost never came up during the day, so it was kind of cool to look around at something other than the night sky. Off in the distance, I could make out the Endeavor football field and bleachers. My favorite run takes me right past here, said Hal, pointing to the east. I know. It wasn't until the words were out of my mouth that I realized what I just revealed. You know? Asked Hal, turning to me, a confused look on his face. I mean, I didn't know it was your favorite, sometimes I blush so hard you can practically hear it spreading across my body. I just come out here sometimes with my mom's telescope. Suddenly I realized what that sounded like. To look at the stars, I added quickly, but once I saw you running by, not with the telescope or anything, with the naked eye. As I spoke the word naked, I had to fight the huge urge to turn and run at top speed back down the Crabapple Hill, not stopping until I'd gotten inside my house, bolted the front door, and buried my head under all 10 of the pillows on my bed. What exactly had been so bad about silence again? Oh. Hal did not seem to notice my humiliation. Stargazing. That sounds like fun. It's great, I agreed eagerly. I didn't add that with one exception. I hadn't done it in about 6 months. I haven't heard anything from Amanda, said Hal, and it's starting to freak me out. I really thought she'd be back in school today. I went by her house this afternoon. I continued to gaze around the landscape, anywhere but at Hal. Well, what I thought was her house. What do you mean? Asked Hal. He sat down on the low flat rock and squinted up at me. I told him about having ridden past Amanda's house with her 2 months ago. But she doesn't live on Princeton Avenue, he objected, when I mentioned the name of the street we'd biked on. She lives downtown. It's an apartment building right by the tattoo place. What? What was Hal talking about? No, she doesn't. Hal wasn't at all affected by me telling him he was lying. Yes, she does, he insisted. Those new condos they just built? She and her mom are living in the, the show apartment? The sample? Whatever. It's the one they decorate to let you see what it will be like. That's where they're living until theirs is finished. But a condo in town? I'd had such a picture of Amanda in the Victorian house. I couldn't replace it with some sterile, pre-furnished apartment. Besides, her mom was in Uganda with the gorillas. Hal seemed to feel bad for making me so confused. His voice was soft as he continued. What happened is, when her dad died, instead of making me feel better, I felt like I was being lectured by a crazy person. When her dad died? What do you mean when her dad died? Her dad didn't die. He works for the UN. Now it was Hal's turn to look at me like I was the one taco short of combination platter. Her dad died a long time ago when she was like 3 or something. Okay, now I had proof that Hal was out of his mind. Hal, no way did her dad die when she was 3. He taught her quadratic equations, which I can assure you even a math genius like Amanda did not learn at the age of 3. Her parents are both alive. The reason she's here in Orion is because her mom's in Africa, her dad's in Latin America, and she's living with her father's parents in that big Victorian house over on Princeton Avenue. But even as I spoke the words, I knew they were totally nuts. Or I was. Or something.